This is the Leeds Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Phil Fraser. I'm a business sounding board, think somewhere between a business coach and a business mentor, and I help business owners to not be lonely at the top. In this week's episode, we speak to Stuart Clarke MBE, Festival Director for the Leeds Digital Festival and owner of Paceline Strategy and PR. Stuart explains to us what startups and scale-ups most need, how and when to, or not to, source external funding, how the Leeds Tech Map came about, and all about the amazing annual Leeds Digital Festival. He also talks to us about how to build a community. To make sure you never miss out on every episode of the Leeds Business Podcast, sign up to our priority list at www.leedsbusinesspodcast.com. Everyone that signs up gets a free gift to help their business. So, let's get into what is a really interesting interview. On today's Leeds Business Podcast, we have probably Leeds' best mover and shaker, Stuart Clarke. Hi, Stuart.
Hey, Phil. Yeah, thanks for that.
The reason I say best mover and shaker, just listen to this list of awards. So the Tech Nation report in the startup space, he was the most influential person in Leeds. The Digital Leader DL 100, he was one of the top 3 digital leaders in the UK. And Yorkshire Business Insider had him on their Power List 100. And he got an MBE in 2023. Now that is a mover and shaker. Yes, Stuart?
Yeah. Well, slightly moving, slightly shaking, but yeah. No, it's been really interesting the last few years of getting involved in some incredible things and being part of an incredible network of people in tech across the whole region. Yeah. So it's a big team.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It is indeed. Let's start then. We'll move away from the moving and shaking. Let's start with the day job. Tell us about Paceline.
Well, Paceline. So my career has always been in marketing. My first ever job after uni, I worked for the Treasury in Whitehall. And as I always say, Her Majesty's Treasury. But then after 9 months, Her Majesty and I decided that we weren't quite compatible. Yeah. Nothing but respect for civil servants with their dedication, intelligence, and it wasn't quite for me. So jumped into marketing, and that's what I've been ever since. So 10 years ago, I set up my own company, Paceline. It'll be 10 years at the end of 2023. And we work with tech companies across the region to help them with their PR, their marketing strategy, help them build connections. We do a lot of work with companies coming into the region for that inward investment piece. So we help them sort of accelerate their network either as a company or individuals, some of the senior leaders. So we're involved with loads of companies from startups to some of the biggest international tech firms around. But it's still got that very much PR and marketing sort of strength to it, just to make sure that people are getting there. They're building their brands, getting especially the early companies or those more established companies. How do we make sure that there is that client and more particularly that talent acquisition? Because all the tech firms are struggling for talent at the moment. So we think, how do we make sure that our clients are sort of stepping up a little bit so they get much more of a profile? Yeah.
So, what was the motivation to actually start your own company? There's a lot of people listening today, maybe thinking about starting their own business. What was that trigger that made you go, right, I'm going to do it myself?
I think part of it is, often in these things, there's not sort of a clear plan. It's been in the back of my head for a long time, but you have kids, you have a good job, you have a good salary that comes in at the same day every month. So there's always that, maybe 6 months, maybe 12 months. But my last sort of proper job, as my family would call it, I was working for a Canadian bank. I was looking after their corporate relationships in the UK. Did that for 7 years, and we'd bought a couple of extra companies. So I went in and looked after the team there and the clients. And then at one point they sold one of the companies, which had turned out to be about 80% of my day job. So the company were great, tried to find me a role. It took about a year, and I knew there wouldn't be a role for me that would be interesting. So with that year, I just spent it thinking, planning, what am I going to do? Building a network back up, because in that 7 years, my network in Leeds and the region has sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit, but my network in London was big, and that's where most of the clients and most of my team were. So I spent that year, say, planning and building, and say, right, let's just go for it. Yeah. And when I've spoken to loads of people since, they always say, oh yeah, it's great. We made sure we had a couple of anchor clients first before we jumped ship. And I'm thinking, well, that was first mistake I made. Just, left a well-paid job on a Friday, then a Monday, thought, right, okay, where are these clients going to come from? But it's been great. And as I say, really focused on the tech world. All our clients are in tech. Yeah. We're good at many things, and we're good at many things in tech. We wouldn't take on a client, say, in retail or hospitality or property, because we don't understand those businesses.
So was the choice to go mainly tech or only tech and start up and scale up, was that a proactive choice originally, or did that just happen?
No, it sort of happened. It happened fairly quickly, because I was always interested in the tech side. And say most of the companies I'd worked for, in the sort of corporate world, were in financial services. But I'd always had that interest in tech. I'd been dabbling in sort of share dealing, and there was always tech firms that I was investing in. A lot of friends locally were either in building software companies, or starting to work for software companies. I had a lot of links within the sort of digital marketing network. So again, some of the clients they had were there. So it just it wasn't a clear plan. So the year before I set up the business, it will be tech, but within a year of setting up business, that's what it was. It was just like, right, this is it. This is what's most interesting. This is what's fast growing as well. So, and particularly in that startup world, so it was over the last 10 years or so, it's been partly about me building a business, working with paid clients, but also I'm working with a lot of startups within Leeds, and where we are now as a region, as a city on the startup world is so different to where it was. Well, forget 10 years ago, even just 5 years ago, we've seen so many more startups come through and succeeding as well, because we all know the failure rate of startups, but we're keeping more talented people in the region, and helping more talented people build their startups.
So over that 10 years of building the business, what would you say has been the hardest part of it?
I'd say the hardest part is always it's probably finding the right people to work with internally for us. We're a very small team. I've no interest in building a company that's got 20, 50, 100 people in. We've turned work down in the past because of that, when we feel that we can't bring a new client on and do a good enough job for them. And in the past, when we've been looking around for people to fit with the culture, to fit with the clients that we have, sometimes that's been difficult. We've always found the right people, but in the end, I realized when I was working, one of the benefits of working for a corporate world, you can make loads of mistakes on their money. And again, that hiring piece, I became really good at hiring in the end, because you get that sort of feel for who will fit in the team, rather than just who can do something technically, because you can always train someone, send them on a course, get them to learn on the job. But it's all about that culture. Will this person fit with a client? Will this person fit with the rest of the team? And that was really important over the years. And as I say, I became quite good at that. So whether I'm still really picky now, but it's a good thing to be. Yeah, good thing to be.
Yeah, I think that's a key point. You can teach people a skill, but it's really hard to teach them culture and what's in them, and their persona, their work ethic, their motivation, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So you work mainly with startups and scale ups. What do those type of companies need most from you?
I think part of it, some of it, especially those early startups, it's just like, what is the real strategy? You work with some people who are just really, they've got a real vision of what they want to build, but that bringing it down into a couple of simple steps, what's the product market fit? Who are your first customers? Yeah. How do you build a network, which is key? And that's something I'll keep coming back to as we chat today. And it's how do we make sure they get in front of the right people. I've got a big network. I've worked really hard at my network, so it's easy for me to find the right person than a bright young 20-year-old just coming straight out of uni and trying to find that right person. So, if I can sort of jump forward a few steps and find the right person to help them, whether it's as a mentor, the right accountant, the right lawyer, the right CTO, that sort of thing, the right companies to work with. So that's one of the things we do on the lower stage, lower years of startup. Going towards the scale-ups, it's very much about that honing down on the plan, working with the internal teams. But also, as I say, it's all about that raising that profile. And as I mentioned earlier, often that's around about talent acquisition, around just client acquisition. And, so we do a lot of award nominations. We've got a really good strike rate for shortlist and wins. We'll work closely with sort of local and regional media again to get high profile and speaking opportunities. That's a great way for individuals and companies to start saying, actually, we're different. You might think we're one of 10 companies that look the same, but we're doing something different. And so we're going to take every opportunity to tell people why we're doing it different and why you should work for us and why you should give us some business. And of course, everything comes together in one. You can't just do one thing and expect the world to change. You've got to do a number of things and consistently. I think we've all seen those firms, even those firms we work with and respect and like their products. They're sort of, you come in, do loads of stuff for 3 months, then you don't hear of them for a year. It's just that, consistency I think is really key, just to keep building up that profile along the way. Yeah.
No, that's very good. That's very good. And one of the things you do as part of that support for your startups is a peer-to-peer roundtable program, isn't it, called PARSE? Tell us a little bit about that, how it came about and what you actually do.
How it came about, and again, I've been working with so many startups over the year and did that sort of informal introducing and said, you need to speak to so-and-so because they're 6 months ahead of you and they had the same problem, so it took them 4 months to sort it out. If you have a chat with them, it'll probably take you 2 days to sort it out. So there's lots of that over the years. And I thought, well, how do we formalize that? So it's not just me, bumping into somebody and not just me knowing somebody. There's many more people out there than in my network. So set up PARSE a couple of years ago. The idea is 2 hours a month. We get startup founders in the sort of semi-formal settings while facilitate, and people will come along with their challenges, experiences, opportunities. And we had one a couple of years ago that came in and said, I think I've killed my business. So he explained what was going on. And one of the other founders started laughing and said, we did that. and again, by the end of the session, everything was, sunshine, rainbows and lollipops again. And it was great. That first year, we had some financial help from Leeds City Council, enable us to put something on. Bruntwood, who own platform building in Leeds, Tech Hub, they're really generous, give us some free space. And since then, we've been running it on our own. So, we pay for it all. We make sure it all happens, all the admin and everything. I'm looking for funders. If anyone wants to sponsor the next year's PARSE cohort, that would be great. But I think one of the things I get out of it, not only does me sort of paying back a little bit into the tech network, and hopefully a lot of these startups will really prosper and bring more jobs and wealth into the city region. I think, and we've seen some really, really interesting sort of wins and successes on the back of it, just because of that, that network and, some really close relationships and friendships, either personal or on the business side as well. People helping each other, people lending each other staff at some point, just making sure that everybody's network becomes everybody else's network. And it's that, that real power and really pushing out. So that I think that's really important to make sure everybody who should know somebody does know somebody. And I always this thing about startup failures, and a lot of people think it's because startups run out of money, whereas I always think they run out of time. And money can be a factor in that, but I do think everybody's got probably right in the back of the mind, this thing should take me 6 months, 4 years, whatever it is. And if you get beyond that, you can see, but I've seen it in the past where people just run out of patience and the sort of the will to keep going. So if something takes 20 months, if a startup takes 20 months, naturally, how do we make sure we bring that down to 16 months, 14 months, 12 months as a community, as people like me who've, a bit more experience, a bit more networks, how do we make sure that it's the right lawyer from the start, not just make a mistake and you're on your third lawyer, and how do we make sure we get access to funding earlier? And that's one of the key things about funding. Loads of startups that I know have taken way too long to raise that first little bit of seed funding because they don't know the right people. The angel networks are not always established, or they don't quite understand the tech they're building. And, it can be 6, 12, 18 months before the right funding comes in. So again, how do we make sure that as a region, as a community, we bring that right down? So not taking 6 months, let's take it 6 days to get the funding, and then we get them going.
I think, that's a really, really good point. I think the funding piece from a startup point of view, that question, when should I take funding? How much funding should I take? How much of the company should I give away? All of those sort of questions, you've got maybe not necessarily the answer, but the guide to them. So if you were talking to a startup, what would you say is the answer to the question, when do I need funding?
When you need it. And again, it's it's a dreadful answer, but it is that really individual, because some people I've known built incredible startups over the years. They've been doing it on evenings and weekends while they've been keeping the day job going. Others have just jumped straight into it, and so need that funding a little bit more quickly. And also the type of startup as well. Some startups like deep tech or med tech or something, you need a lot of money very early. Whereas if you're building like a SaaS product, you can be doing that on evenings and weekends and various other things. So it really depends on the type of startup. But again, it's that making sure that people have got access, whether they're bootstrapping along the way and just need a little top up at some point, or whether they do need that 2 million quid straight out of the blocks. And again, rather than them spending time meeting 30 companies asking for that 2 million, let's make sure that they meet the three who are more likely to fund it, who've got experience in that sector, and will help them along the way. Because it's not just a matter of money. And this sounds a bit glib, but you can get money. You can get money anywhere. If you're looking for an angel investor, get the money from the angel who can introduce them to their network, who've maybe got some experience in that sector, and they've got time to sit with you and meet every month, whenever, every quarter, whenever you need to, as opposed to, here's 50 grand, come back in a couple of years, hopefully, when you've made me $500,000. So if you have got, it is a luxury, but if you have got the choice between one person's 50 who are going to really add value and another person's 50, go for the value every time, or even less if it's 40 there, but you just know it'll accelerate the journey.
Yeah. People will often hear the term grey money or grey investment, because it's in the grey hair that we both got. You've got that experience you're bringing along as well as the cash. If we just go back a step there, there's a whole world out there of different types of funding and different types of finance. Could you just touch on a few of the most, I don't know, maybe the simplest ones or the most straightforward ones that startups might be looking for?
Well, I suppose the most straightforward is bootstrapping. Don't raise any money at all. And I know some really successful businesses in Leeds and who have built and grown, and a couple of cases have sold for really well. Yeah, we're looking at one of them there. But so again, that's the best thing. If you don't need to raise money, don't raise money. Yeah, and also as well, I've seen it before when people do need to raise, and they're raising, say, $1 million. You say, why are you raising $1 million? And you go into it, and they need 600, but part of it is not $1 million, Sam. It's easy to do the sums on $1 million. And also, as all in the back of everyone's mind, what if we need a bit more? Well, if you need a bit more, raise it a bit further down the line, because obviously you raise money, you're giving equity away. So the more you can keep yourself, the better. And it's better now to find the right information. There's a lot more out there, but sometimes it is a bit of a minefield because, you go on this site and that site and they're all telling you slightly different things. And one of the things we did this year, we launched something called Leeds Digital, and it was an offshoot of the Leeds Digital Festival. So it's an all year round site. So we're building that up. So there's lots of news, lots of content. And one of the things we'll launch fairly soon will be a whole resources section, which again, which will have a lot about investment. And, we're not using it so there'll be a million words on our site, but it'll be signposting to what we think are the right sites and the clearer sites. So again, bringing that, how do we make sure instead of taking this long, it takes this long, put everything together in a nice, clear way. And one change we've seen over the last sort of 5 to 10 years within the North and Leeds in particular is that there's more follow-on funders. There's always been a decent angel networks, even though with particularly sort of individual angels who've been successful in various ways. But we're getting more larger funders coming in now for those, whether it's 500,000 or going up to sort of 5 to 10 million. If you want more than that, you probably have to go to London or further afield for that. But that's a nice issue to have if you want to raise that amount of money. But certainly for those lower stage businesses, there's a lot more opportunities now.
Okay, and in the show notes below, if you're watching, or in your podcast player, there will be a link to Leeds Digital there, so you can find more details of that. We'll talk about Leeds Digital Festival in a while, but those who are watching on YouTube will see behind you, Stuart, is the Leeds Tech Map.
Here's one
how did that come about? How did that come about? And talk us through it.
Yeah, well, it was one of those things where, and again, for years, that key thing for me, as I've mentioned, about introducing people, making sure people know who's out there. And one conversation that kept coming back up, maybe I talked to a software firm and they know of 4 or 5 others, but no more than that. Or some people would think they're the only fintech in town, that sort of thing. So I thought, well, we should make we should make all this available. How do we make sure we bring everything together? And part of that, start putting a spreadsheet together. And it's really boring. Nobody wants to sort of scroll down in Excel. So I thought, let's put it in a easy, accessible and a good looking way. So I came up with the idea of the Tech Map. But it just sat there on the side. It was one of those, every 6 months, bring it forward. Maybe I'll do this. And it went. But in the first lockdown, I thought, let's just crack on with it. And I'm going to say first lockdown, we didn't stop. We weren't furloughed or anything, because one of the beauties of working with tech firms, they were busier than ever that year. So we became busier than ever. But I thought it was on now and ever for the Tech Map. So we just cracked on with it. And in my naive mind, I thought, this will take 12, 15 hours and we can do it for virtually no cost. So 200 hours and about $5,000 worth of design costs later, and I think this is version about 5, because every time we thought we had it looking, we had to move one sort of line, and then you've got all the cross lines. So we launched that back in I think March 2021. So and it's just been great. So we had quite a few hundred printed. There's printed and framed copies in sort of dozens, if not sort of 100 plus sort of receptions and boardrooms around Leeds, which is great because it's got my company's details in the top corner, and we have won some business out of it. But right from the off, we just made it free. If anybody wants a copy, if anybody wants to download it and print it themselves, if anybody wants to use it for any reason, it's out there. It's a resource for the region. And what's been really nice over the last couple of years with the Tech Map is that both Leeds City Council and also the local West Yorkshire Combined Authority with their inward investment teams, trying to attract firms to move to Leeds, to open up in Leeds. They've used the Tech Map and given loads of copies away and so I think there's framed copies in China, Malaysia, India, Germany, US, just everywhere, because when companies are looking to move to the UK for the first time, obviously they'll probably look at London because everyone knows of London. And so with Leeds, it's a case of like, there's a community here, there's talent pool, there's these great universities, there's companies that will already train loads of good staff for you to move into. And look, here they are. So again, talking about this incredible, dynamic, forward-thinking tech community that we have here that perhaps Leeds hasn't always got the reputation for, or rather didn't. But I think the last few years, that's really changed radically.
And if anybody wants a copy of the Tech Map, where would they get them?
Well, if you go onto paceline.digital, which is our website, you'll see there's a tab on there for Leeds Tech Map. You can download a PDF straight away. If you want the printed copy, just give us a shout. We've still got a few left. I've just about been able to get in my bedroom in the last 6 months. When we had them all delivered at first, quite underestimated how many sort of how big a pallet it would be with sort of 400 printed maps all in there in tubes. Yeah, it's big.
Brilliant. And there will be a link to that address in the show notes if anybody wants a copy. And let's hope the next issue of the Leeds Tech Map has the Leeds Business Podcast on as well.
Well, let's see. We are redoing it at the very soon, so we'll be putting a call out for all those companies that are not on to be included.
Brilliant. So every week on the Leeds Business Podcast, we tell you about our gentleman's agreement, and ladies. It's a 2-part agreement. My half of the agreement, every week I bring you inspiring Leeds business people for free. Your half of the deal has 2 simple steps. Number 1, I want you to share this podcast with just one person who you think will get value from it. Step 2, you need to do either, if you're listening, post a review of the show in your Apple Podcast app, or post a review at podchaser.com, or if you're listening on Spotify, give us 5 stars. That's it. Fair deal. Think it's a fair deal, Stuart?
Perfect. I'm up for that.
You should do it, so you should do it. Now, one of the key things we've sort of touched on a couple of times, and I want to talk about now, is the Leeds Digital. So how did it come about, and what's it there for?
Well, I think with Leeds Digital Festival, it came about. So back in the summer of 2015, Leeds City Council put together I think they call it a digital strategy day. And what they did, they brought about 100 people from around the city, from software firms, from investors to digital marketing agencies, and people who are involved in sort of digital and tech world, and said, look, this is our 5-year plan of what we think we can do and need to do to support the growing tech sector, and particularly around sort of employment, career opportunities, that type of thing. And after that, a few of us kept having different conversations about that. It's not just down to the council. You can't just sit back and say, go on, council should sort it all out. So a bunch of us got together in a pub. There was about a dozen of us, and said, what can we do? And, came up with the idea of a tech festival, not a new idea, that had been happening before in many places. And we decided to put one on in the April of 2016. So I said I'd run the first one, and I really thought I'd just run the first 1 or 2, but this is our 8th year this year. And in that first year, I was particularly going around asking for sponsorship. It's like, we're running this thing that we haven't done before. We don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know how many events are going to be there. We don't know how many people are going to turn up, but could you give us some money, please? So, not the most persuasive sell, but we had sort of just over 50 events that first year. And it's just grown and grown and grown since. So, last 2 or 3 years, we settled to about 240, 250 events per festival, which is two whole weeks. And it's one of the straplines we use is, there's something for everybody. And there really is, whether it's fintech or health tech or data, any sort of sector that you want to look at, there's something there. Lots of stuff on careers, lots of stuff on diversity, lots of social events as well, because that's one of the key things we wanted to do. We had 2 main aims. One was about celebration. How do we make more noise as a region? And as I said a second ago, we probably didn't have the profile back in 2015, 2016 of all the innovation and the talent that we had. Whereas I think, we've got that profile now. People see Leeds as one of the key tech regions in the UK. But also that how do we bring people together, that collaboration. So right from the off, we wanted to make it as free as possible. And I think out of the 240 odd events that's happening in the 2023 festival, I think there's only 4 or 5 that's got a charge for them. The rest are totally free. So whether you're a student, whether you're starting a career, whether you've been working for a long time, you can go and get all this incredible amount of learning and knowledge and networking, and it's a real buzz, for those couple of weeks every September. Most of them are sort of physically in Leeds, so people are sort of crisscrossing the city. And the last few years we've had a sort of mini fest in April as well, which is 3 days, 12 events, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, just to keep the conversation going, and also to remind people we're coming back in September, particularly sort of event organisers, just to say, you've got 5 months now. Let's talk about how we can help you build a great event and how we can help you promote a great event. Yeah.
And from a personal point of view, I have to say it's an absolutely fantastic event. I've spoken 2 or 3 times, I think, at it, and it's been a huge success. And there's always something fascinating to visit, look at, attend. Some of it's been on Zoom, some of it's been real. And anyone who's listening, I would strongly recommend you go. Again, URL for the Leeds Digital Festival will be in the show notes. So anybody wants to go along, please do. It is fantastic. Now, every week,
that's great.
I was going to say, every week, we ask our guests to deliver us a how-to. So Stuart, what are you going to teach us how to do, and tell us how to do it?
Well, I think the how-to is about how to build a community. And I've been making lots of reference to the Leeds Digital Festival here, and as I mentioned a second ago, it was about that celebration and collaboration, but bringing people together is really important. And we do that at Paceline with PARSE and the Tech Map. It's like how do you make sure everybody's getting that support that they need? And some people say, well, isn't that just like fancy term for networking? And networking, I think, is different because that's on sort of individual level, either as a person or a particular event. But that community feel, how do you make sure that people feel involved? One of the things I love about the Digital Festival each year, you get competitors coming together to put events on together because they want to show off the talent that we've got in Leeds. A great example, we have a number of digital marketing agencies who would come together, put an event on search engine optimization, because they want Leeds to be the SEO capital of the UK. So, let's shout, let's come together, let's put the best event on together. And I think that's the difference with the community. It's about that it benefits everybody, not just yourself. So you're not going to a networking event with your business card and you're trying to, find a new client. It's like, how do we make sure everybody comes up? And a lot of people use the phrase, that rising tide lifts all boats. And I think that's really key of the successful communities. And I'd like to think that the Leeds Digital Festival is one of those successful communities where we do bring people along with everybody. Probably built the biggest tech community, certainly in Yorkshire, but probably outside of London as well over the years. And when I mentioned earlier, we launched Leeds Digital just to keep that conversation going all year round, because I think in previous years we had the Leeds Digital Festival. Everyone gets excited for 2 weeks, then you go back to your day job. So it's all about keeping that conversation going. And there's loads of great examples, and you may know someone called Gordon Bateman. He runs a company called CRSI. He set up this incredible event this year, 2-day event called Climb 23, and it was about bringing investors and innovators together. It was incredible 2 days, and again with Gordon, it wasn't just a case of how many tickets can I flog and how much money can I make, and I'd hate to think how much money he lost on it, but to him it was like, build from that community. How do we make sure that everybody goes away with something? Everybody's gone away with a bigger network. Everybody's gone away with more knowledge, and everybody's gone away with a plan and an opportunity to grow and help everybody else grow. And that's one of the key things we try to do with the Digital Festival over the years, and that careers side. How do we make sure we involve, the universities, the colleges? So those, whether you're 14, 16, 21, about the tech community, you've got access to the tech community, whether that's formally as in mentors, or whether it's just come along to this great social networking event and you get a slice of pizza and a couple of beers for free. But unless we tell people and attract them in and make them feel welcome, then, we'll struggle for talent. People come to Leeds, great universities, then they'll go back home. Let's keep them in. So I think that, how to build that community, it's all about making it as free as possible. Some things may have to be charged for, but on the whole, make it as free as possible. Give people a reason for joining, whether that's learning something, whether that's finding a job right now, whether that's people new to the area, whether that's individuals or companies, and just keep giving that benefit and benefit and benefit. So you'll keep them within the community. Those people who may be a bit nervous about speaking or, putting on their own events to start with, encourage them, help them, introduce them to someone who can do that with them. So, but just making sure that end goal is to make sure that people feel part of something, and they can go out to the rest of the UK and say, you don't want to be living in London, you want to be coming to Leeds, because, it's, again, another thing we've said all the year through is, when we first started off, Leeds being the digital capital of the North, and, I think that's 95% true, but there's a little bit of 5% PR hype and bullshit with that as well. But I think I'm pushing to digital capital of the UK because there's so much going on here, and I think it's more accessible than just about anywhere else in the UK.
That's absolutely brilliant, Stuart. And I have to say, on behalf of the whole Leeds digital community, the work you do and the drum banging you do is absolutely amazing. And, rightly, you got an MBE for all that hard work. So well done on that. Thank you for all of that.
Well, again, I would say that, with the MBE, because it was services to the technology sector, and that's come directly from the Leeds Digital Festival. And the Digital Festival has been successful, and it's continuing to be successful over the years, but it's because firms put the events during the festival, individuals speak at the festival, everybody gets involved, whether it's the civic authorities, whether it's the newest startup, and that's how it's grown. So it's not me saying, oh, look what I've done. The community drives the digital festival. And a few years ago, we had a conversation with a very well-known tech event, probably the biggest in the UK, you may guess. And the conversation finished off and said, well, would you sell the digital festival? Because they buy tech events around the world. I was like, well, there's nothing to buy, because it's the community. And if someone comes in, so top down, then people will go up and do something else and create Leeds Digital Festival Part 2 over there. So it's the network and the community that's built the festival.
Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. So one last thing, we asked all our guests to give a shout out to another Leeds company. So who do you want to give a shout out to?
Well, I'm going to give a shout out to a startup that I've worked with. Heads up, I'm an investor in this and a mentor to the founder. But it's just really incredibly exciting. It's called Cast Rooms, and the founder is Mitali Mukherjee, and Mitali had a great, successful corporate career for many years. And about 18 months ago, she gave that up to build Cast Rooms, and it's I think she calls it the social streaming for music, musical visionaries. And what it is, we've all been on those, especially in COVID or Zoom, and you're listening to bands and DJs, and it's just coming straight at you, and you don't feel you're involved. And also for the performer, they're streaming it out there, but they don't know if people are still watching. They don't know if people are enjoying it. They don't know if they've gone into the next room for a cup of tea. So what this does, it enables people to put, so if I'm in my living room watching something, I have my webcam on, so I can feel part of something. You can see other people, taking part in the audience. The performer can see what people are doing, and they can sort of, decide, that track went down really well because more people are dancing, so let's put something on. It's great for promoters. It's great for performers who just want to do sort of smaller sets. So again, you're not traveling, the carbon footprint and everything. So it's just really exciting. And she's built herself a really nice team. She got some early investment, built a really nice team. done lots and lots of test gigs, working with some really incredible DJs. I always have to Google. You mentioned a DJ or a club. I always have to Google them afterwards because I've no idea who these people are. And she's just having some great conversations across the whole music industry. So big shout out to Mitali and Cast Rooms.
Fantastic. And there'll be links to Cast Rooms in the show notes. So anybody wants to check it out, they can do. Stuart, it's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much for your time. And I hope our audience enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you found it interesting, inspiring, and of use. To make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes, please subscribe to the show. Go on, do it now. Go on, do it before you go off and do something else. Thank you. Oh, and don't forget our gentleman's agreement.